Welcome to the world of college football where the stakes are as high as ever and the drama just keeps on coming. Today, we're diving into one of the most shocking twists in the college football playoff, CFP, history. SMU gets the final at-large spot in the 2024 playoff over none other than the Alabama Crimson Tide. Yes, you heard that right, SMU. And Alabama? Well, they're left on the sidelines. So, how did we get here? Buckle up, because this journey is full of surprises. And I'm here to break it all down for you. SMU snags the final playoff spot, a shocker. Let's start with the basics. SMU made it to the college football playoff. Despite losing 34-31 to Clemson in a nail-biting ACC championship game, the Mustangs secured that coveted final at-large berth over Alabama, who didn't even play in a conference championship game. SMU finished the season at 11-2, while Alabama came in at 9-3. Now, let's not forget that SMU wasn't exactly on top of the world after that ACC title game loss. They dropped from number 8 to number 10 in the rankings. But here's the kicker. SMU stayed ahead of Alabama, who despite a solid 9-3 record, found themselves left out of the playoff picture. The playoff field is made up of 5 conference champions and 7 at-large teams. And in this year's case, SMU, despite their loss, still earned their place due to a number of factors. But the question on everyone's mind is, why did Alabama miss out? And how did SMU squeeze in? The battle of the rankings. Why SMU over Alabama? Before we get too deep into the weeds, let's take a look at what got SMU the playoff bid. The selection committee places heavy emphasis on conference championships. And here's where SMU had the upper hand. SMU secured a spot in the title game after a fantastic regular season. And despite the close loss to Clemson, a top 20 team, the committee valued that conference title game experience. Meanwhile, Alabama's road to the playoff wasn't as smooth. Sure, Alabama had some marquee wins, notably a victory over Georgia, as well as wins against South Carolina and Missouri, all teams ranked in the top 25. But here's where things got tricky. Alabama had a few devastating losses. First, a blowout loss to unranked Oklahoma, by 3 touchdowns, and another surprising loss to Vanderbilt left Alabama sitting at home during conference championship weekend. These bad losses were a nail in the coffin for their playoff hopes. In short, SMU earned a spot by virtue of playing in and losing a conference championship game, while Alabama's bad losses to teams they really should have beaten kept them out. The strength of conference championship games. If there's one lesson to take away from this decision, it's this: conference championships matter. The committee took a good hard look at Alabama's overall body of work. But when push came to shove, they gave more weight to SMU's performance in a conference title game than to Alabama's impressive regular season victories. It's a tough pill to swallow for Alabama fans. But it's a reminder of the importance of not just scheduling tough teams, but also winning those critical late-season games. Let's talk about what's at stake here. The CFP's top 4 conference champions get first-round byes, while the 5th one has to play in the first round. Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, and Arizona State, the big winners in their respective conferences, all earned those coveted byes. But it was a big surprise when SMU, despite losing in the ACC championship game, was still in the playoff hunt and remained ahead of Alabama in the rankings. What does this mean for future scheduling? Now that we've seen SMU in, and Alabama out, the big question everyone's asking is, what does this mean for future scheduling? Nick Saban's philosophy has always been about scheduling the toughest opponents, and that's what Alabama did this year. The Crimson Tide faced a brutal SEC schedule, which included top-tier teams like Georgia, South Carolina, and Missouri. But in the world of the college football playoff, sometimes even that isn't enough. The committee will always look at the whole picture, and bad losses, even to unranked teams, will come back to haunt you. So, what's the takeaway for teams like Alabama and others who pride themselves on playing the best of the best? You might want to think twice about scheduling tough non-conference games unless you're certain your team is good enough to make it through with a clean record. SMU didn't have any wins over teams in the current CFP rankings, but they didn't suffer any embarrassing losses either. And that consistency helped them stay ahead. The road ahead, the 2024 CFP bracket. Now that the teams have been selected, let's take a quick look at the matchups in the 2024 College Football Playoff. First round matchups. Number 12 Clemson, 10-3. ACC champion, versus number 5 Texas, 11-2. At large, December 21st. 4 p.m. Eastern Time. TNT. Number 11 SMU, 11-2. At large, versus number 6 Penn State, 11-2. At large, December 21st. Noon ET. TNT. Number 10 Indiana, 11-1. At large, versus number 7 Notre Dame, 11-1. At large, December 20th. 8 p.m. Eastern Time. ESPN. Number 9 Tennessee, 10-2. At large, versus number 8 Ohio State, 10-2. At large, December 21st. 8 p.m. Eastern Time. ESPN. As we can see, SMU will face a tough opponent in Penn State. While Alabama, well, they'll be watching from home this time. Wrapping up, the takeaways. So, what did we learn here? Well, for one, the importance of conference championships is more critical than ever. And bad losses, especially to unranked teams, will have major consequences. SMU didn't win the ACC, but they made it to the conference championship, which gave them a solid argument for a playoff spot. Alabama, on the other hand, had great wins but simply couldn't recover from their mid-season missteps. With the new 12-team playoff format, this year's selections are setting the stage for future seasons of college football. If anything, it's clear that consistency in avoiding costly losses is key to getting into the playoff, no matter how tough your schedule is. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more football content, and share this video with your friends. Let's keep this conversation going. And I'll see you in the next one. Go Team Football! Welcome all American football lovers back to the US Football News Channel. Our content is produced by 24 Hours Online Media. Today we will start with the following notable content. Alright, let's get this party started with a wild college football rollercoaster. Grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's talk about one of the most jaw-dropping decisions the College Football Playoff Committee has ever made. Picture this. You're Nick Saban, legendary football mastermind, watching your team, Alabama, miss out on the 2024 College Football Playoff, CFP, in favor of SMU? Yep, you read that right. The Crimson Tide is out, and the Mustangs are in. Can you believe it? Neither can Nick. And trust me, his reaction is nothing short of entertaining. So, here's the situation. After a long, nerve-wracking season, Alabama finds itself on the outside looking in at the CFP, while SMU sneaks in with its impressive 11-2 record. Even though they lost to Clemson in a heart-stopping ACC championship game. How did that happen, you ask? Well, let me walk you through it in a way that'll make you wonder if the world of college football has gone completely mad. The big decision. SMU over Alabama? First, let's break this down. SMU, coming off an emotional loss to Clemson, still managed to secure the final spot in the CFP. But the real kicker? Alabama, with a 9-3 record and a resume full of tough SEC games, didn't make the cut. I know. It sounds like something straight out of a movie where the underdog takes down the giant. But this is real life, folks, and it's about as crazy as it gets. Now, Alabama fans are not happy campers. You can almost hear the collective scream from Tuscaloosa. What do we have to do to get into the playoff? And while I totally understand their frustration, it turns out that this decision wasn't just based on who has the flashiest roster or the biggest name. Nope, this was about something bigger, the strength of schedule. Nick Saban's take on the matter. Now, let's talk about Nick Saban, the man who, as of late, is spending more time analyzing football from the sidelines than leading Alabama to yet another championship. When the decision came down, Saban didn't exactly throw a tantrum, he's too cool for that. But he did have some thoughts. In a post-selection show interview, Saban went full-on philosopher, pondering what this could mean for the future of scheduling. His big question? If we don't take strength of schedule into consideration, is there any benefit to scheduling really good teams in the future? That's a valid point, Nick. The scheduling conundrum. For years, Alabama has built its reputation on playing one of the toughest schedules in college football. They've got games against heavyweights like Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Florida State coming up. But after seeing the committee leave them out of the playoff despite that brutal schedule, Saban is wondering